I don't know if this next guy needs any more introduction than that. The Miracle on Ice, 1980 Lake Placid Games. With us to talk about it here on the Hippos Hotline is Mike Eruzione, the captain of that 1980 team. Mike, how are you today? Thanks so much for coming on.
I'm fine. Thank you for having me. It's always nice to hear that little clip.
There's no question about it. Does that give you goosebumps or what?
Well, you know what? It just brings back a lot of good memories, good feelings, good thoughts. So it's always nice, like I said, to hear it.
Mike, I got to tell you, I've been doing this for a long time, and I don't normally get giddy when I talk to athletes, former athletes, but I was 9 years old in 1980. So you're
not that old.
You're like one of my heroes, man. Me and Alan, the producer you talked to, we're like high-fiving. I'm like, I'm going to get talk to Mike Eruzione. This is unbelievable. So, Mike, do you get that reaction a lot? I'm probably not the first that's gotten a little giddy.
Well, you know, it's nice because it was a good moment. It wasn't a good moment. It was a great moment. But it was something that touched a lot of people's lives in a lot of different ways in a very positive way. And it's always a good story. It's, you know, we didn't do anything wrong. It's not like I kind of say this tongue-in-cheek. It's not like I'm O.J. Simpson and I did something wrong. You know, our team represented a lot of good things for a lot of good people, and it's been fun to hear their stories and talk about what that moment meant to them as well.
How many times have you watched the game?
Twice.
Twice? That's it?
Well, I know the outcome.
But I've watched it like 20 times, and I know the outcome.
The last thing I want, and I've said this many times, the last thing I want is sitting in my house and some of my buddies show up, and there I am watching the U.S.-Russian game. It'd be like, you know, Mike, come on, let it go. It's over.
Right. So tell us, Mike, what you've been up to lately.
Boy, I've been doing a lot of things. I mean, I've been working at Boston University for 15, 16 years in the development office there. I'm also I continue to do a lot of motivational speaking around the country. I keep pretty active with that. I help out my high school hockey team as an assistant coach. I've been doing that for probably 15 or 16 years. I do some work with Ritz-Carlton Properties as an ambassador for Ritz-Carlton's Properties. And actually interesting that we have this conversation because I just actually started the first time I've ever been involved in business.
Wow. And
myself and Bonnie Blair and Dan Jansen.
Yep.
Anybody up in the Lake Placid area knows, in the New York area knows who those people are, great speed skaters that they are. We've partnered with a company called Tivana. It's a natural products company that kind of specializes in nutrition and weight loss. And, you know, I guess that everybody else at my age and, you know, you need to kind of start looking at products that will help your body to work in the right way. And so Bonnie, Dan, and I sat down and decided to join this company and become owners, actually, or part owners, you know, of the company, and start our own businesses. And it's pretty interesting. It's, you know, natural products that are really based on science that really kind of give you the right food and stuff that you know that you should put into your system that makes your body work the right way, from nutrition and weight loss. And it's been kind of fun for us, and it's brand new. I mean, we just literally kicked this in about a week ago, so we're really excited about it, and I think it could be something that could work well for us.
And obviously, teaming up with some former Olympians, some former medalists, gives it all the credibility you need in terms of, because you guys are obviously you are very well-conditioned athletes and know what to put in your bodies.
Yeah, it's something that it's different. You know, a lot of people have never heard of it. It's a company that's based out of Provo, Utah. They've actually expanded into Mexico and Canada. And we just really have been on the product for a while. We've saw great results from it, and you know, it's really worked out well for us. And we're excited about you know, getting people to join our team if they want to, use the products if they want to, or start their own business as we have.
Mike Eruzione with us, captain of the 1980 gold medal winning team for the USA. He joins us here on the Hippos Hotline. Mike, are you surprised that after all of these years you're still as popular as you are?
Well, I don't know if I'm that popular, but
you're popular, Mike. I'll be honest with you. You're popular.
I don't know if it's surprised or just I think things have happened for myself and my teammates. Over the years that have kind of kept our story out there, whether it was, you know, after the Olympics, whether it was the HBO documentary, whether it was the movie Miracle, whether it was us lighting the cauldron in Salt Lake City. I mean, there's always seemed to have been moments where our team story gets told that has kind of brought us back to the forefront. And I think, like I said, I'm surprised, but yet I'm not surprised, because it was a moment that wasn't a moment that was just for, Boston or Chicago or
right.
Los Angeles. It was a moment that was a nation's moment, and the people who weren't born in 1980 have seen the movie Miracle, or they saw the History Channel that did a special on us, or they saw the HBO documentary, and I think they now understand, what that moment was and what it was all about. I can't tell you how many times I get calls from college students who are doing reports on the Cold War, and they want to talk to me about 1980 and the Olympic Games. I get high school kids that call me that are doing stories and interviews and things like that. So it's kind of brought another generation into our story and what we accomplished. And again, I think a lot of that was based on what happened in the movie Miracle.
Of course, Eruzione scoring the game-winning goal against the Soviets. The Americans won the gold against Finland in the 1980 Olympics, just north of here in Lake Placid. By the way, we've been doing this show here for about 2.5 years in the Capital Region, Mike. I know there was only like 8,000 in that arena, but I think I've had like 27,000 people tell me that they were at that game. That's
more than that. I think right now it's about 100,000.
Right. And
I was at the two things I always hear. I was at the game, or my boyfriend was the last guy cut from the team.
Right. Right. I read somewhere, Mike, where you turn your 15 minutes of fame into 30 years. That's pretty funny, though, when you get right down to it. But, man, you've done everything because of this. And I think it's great, personally.
Well, you know what? I've always looked at it in life. Everybody gets an opportunity. And I've always felt it's what you do with that opportunity that counts. And clearly in 1980, our team and myself obviously were given an opportunity to do something in their lives, and I think I've taken that opportunity and brought it to a very good and hopefully successful level. But I think I'm proud of the fact that I've done a good job at what I've done. I don't travel around the country speaking at sales meetings because I won a gold medal 30 years ago. I think I travel because I do a good job at what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Bonnie and Dan and I would have got involved with Kivana if they wouldn't have brought us on board if they didn't think that we were, respectable and the right kind of people that they want associated with their products and what they offer. So I think it's hand in hand. Yeah, okay, so I had a great moment 30 years ago, but a lot of athletes in their lives have had great moments and done nothing with it. And I'm, again, proud of the fact that I think I've done a good job living my life and doing the right things with the opportunity I was given.
Mike, take us back to 1980, and for those that, there was my staff here, they weren't born yet. They were born in the mid-'80s.
I deal with that a lot.
It's unreal. So take us back to that time, and why does this game resonate with so many people to this day?
I think a few reasons. One, obviously, for the older person, it was the Cold War. It was us against them, U.S. versus Russia, an economy that kind of similar to what we're dealing with right now. Gas lines, inflation was ridiculous. As a country, I think people were looking for something to feel good about, and it happened to be us. And I think people rallied around that and realized why we are a great nation and why we are a great country, that things like that can happen only in this country. So I think that was for the older person. I think the younger person saw it as, if you believe in something and you're willing to work hard, you can accomplish it. And they see that as an underdog, if you practice hard, if you live a good life, if you make the right choices and do the right things, then good things can happen. So I think there's kind of two generations of it. Again, I'll go back to the movie Miracle. People come up to me all the time, young kids who weren't born and saw the movie and can't believe that this moment happened. And I kind of tell them, yeah, it did, and it happened because we believed and we worked hard. And if you do this, you can have the same goals and dreams in your life as well. So I think it's one of those feel-good stories that that people, felt a part of and realized that it was a real thing. It wasn't, it wasn't a make-up movie. It wasn't a fake movie.
Right.
It wasn't a fake story. It didn't, someone didn't create it. It actually happened. And I think, again, older people, sat and watched it. Younger kids are realizing it now.
Mike, and for me, I was 9 years old. It was 1980. Sports were just so much different back then. I was thinking about it this afternoon when I was preparing for this interview, and I'm like, I don't know if in sports we're ever going to see an upset of that magnitude again.
Well, I hope it happens because I hope it happens in our country because it'll be good for the U.S. But I think why it won't happen is the circumstances. Again, the Soviets and the U.S. being at war and the political end of it. The fact that we're professionals playing against college players, which doesn't happen anymore because the pros are playing in the Olympic Games. So those are two drastic points that probably won't come together again. So maybe that's why, and I said that earlier, it was a moment for a country, not a city or a town or a state. And it's funny when I run into people, so many times they'll come up to me and say, "I remember when we won," and we meaning like they were on the team,
right?
They were part of the team, and yet they weren't. But it felt that way to a lot of people. We won the gold medal. We beat the Russians, and that's a nice thing to be a part of. That's a nice. It's amazing to have something in your life happen that not only touched your life, but touched, millions or hundreds of thousands of people. And that's what makes the victory, I think, 30 years later, so special to me and to my teammates, that it was an important part of people's lives, whether they, were with their mom or dad. And that's I can't tell you how many times people come up and say, my dad passed away a while ago, but I remember I was sitting on the couch and we were watching that game, and it's the first time I ever saw him cry. I hear stories like that, and it's moving to me because it meant a lot to them, and we were just playing the game.
Unbelievable. Mike Eruzione with us, 1980 Olympic gold medalist for the U.S. hockey team in their historic win over Russia up in Lake Placid. Mike, let's sort of go back to the Olympics from 1980 before we get to that Russia game. You guys you played Russia just before the Olympics. They beat you pretty good. You guys head into the Olympic Games now before the tournament actually starts. What did you think of your team's chances, just in the tournament as a whole?
Well, I think, going into, forget the Russian game. That was our last game of a long, grinding season of travel, and the last guys had cut from the team, and I don't think we were anywhere near the same team that played in the Olympic Games that we played, that we showed and played against the Russians in Madison Square Garden. But we thought we had a chance to win a medal. We thought a bronze medal was absolutely possible. The gold medal, we never thought about that because in order to win the gold medal, you got to get to the medal round. So Herb really had one mindset for us, was get to the medal round. If you get to the medal round, anything can happen. So as far as, people thinking we were looking at the Russians were in another bracket, another division, as was Finland and Canada. So we only were concerned with our bracket, which was Czechoslovakia, Sweden, West Germany, Romania, and Norway. We needed to take care of business in our own, place, our own bracket. So Herb's mindset was take care of what we need to take care of. Let's get to the medal round. If we get to the medal round, now anything can happen. And that's really how we approach it. And I hate to be this old cliche, but it really was one game at a time. And we were able to get off to a great start to tie Sweden. And when we beat Czechoslovakia, that was the big turn, because the only team that anybody thought could beat the Czechoslovakia was the Soviets. And we dominated them. And then it really kind of kicked in that we were on, a mission, or we were in control now of our destiny.
And it's funny that you say, after all of the stories, some people, did that really happen? They've seen the movie. They're like, this seems, and here's the thing, Mike, that movie Miracle seems so unreal. It seems like a Disney made up movie. I mean, it really does, doesn't it?
It's funny. If you go back, I think Al Michaels said this either after we beat the Russians or the Finland game. He said if you went up to a Hollywood producer, I'm trying to remember exactly his words, and handed him the script, they never would have believed it. And
right.
How ironic, 30 years later, they made a movie.
It's unbelievable. You mentioned the win over Czechoslovakia, so here you go now. You have momentum. You guys did pretty well in the rest of the group. Let's go now to that Russia-U.S. game. For those that are too young to remember or weren't even born or perhaps don't get the magnitude, just how big you hear always, the ragtag college kids against the pros from Russia. How big of an underdog were you guys going into that Russia game?
Probably a 2-touchdown underdog.
In hockey.
In hockey. The Soviets, I think they beat Japan 2 nights earlier, like 18-0. So, we were playing a a team that was considered the best team in the world. But again, the old adage is you got to play the game. If you think you're going to lose, guess what? You probably are. So our mindset was we needed to play our game. We needed to play well. We needed to play smart. We needed to be disciplined. We couldn't get into a shootout because we weren't going to be able to score 5, 6, 7 goals against them. I think 4 was the maximum number, and I think if you told me before the game that we were going to score 4 goals, I would have said, wow, I think we can win at 4. If you told me we were going to score 2, then I would have said no chance. So I think we played the way that Herb asked us to play, and I think we were a lot better than people thought.
Mm-hmm.
I think clearly years later, people realized that we had some pretty good players on that hockey team. Neil Broughton, Davey Christian, Mike Ramsey, who played up in Buffalo for so many years with the Sabres, Kenny Morrow. I don't know if I mentioned Mark Johnson. Without Mark Johnson, we don't win anyway. So I just think we were a lot better than people realized, and I think we caught the Soviets by surprise. I think they kind of thought that, hey, this is the team we beat 10-3. It's going to be easy, but that wasn't the same team that they played in Lake Placid.
So you go into this game now, and the more you're playing with these guys, you had to be building up some confidence. Isn't that right, Mike?
Oh, absolutely, building confidence. We were excited. We knew we were playing well, and as Herb told us in practice the day before the game, he said they're ripe, they're ready to be beaten. If anybody can beat them, you can beat them. And he didn't say it once. He said it like 4 or 5 times in practice. They're ripe, they're ready to be beaten. Watch how they change lines. Watch how they smile. They think they're cocky. They think they're going to win this whole thing. So he was absolutely brilliant in terms of preparing us for that game. And again, I think a tribute to the guys that I played with. They understood it and they got it and they realized that we had a chance to win. And again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. If you think you're going to lose, you are. So we had to be positive and we had to believe we had a chance.
I remember as a kid, as a 9-year-old, I remember Jim Craig. I think that was probably the best bit of goaltending I'd seen in my life. He was unbelievable, wasn't he? What was it like having him back there in between the pipes?
Well, Jimmy was solid. I mean, Jimmy was solid in college. I'd watched him play his senior year at Boston University. I played with Jimmy, actually. He was a freshman when I was a senior. And throughout the Olympic Games, Jimmy gave us a chance to win. And that's what you want in a goaltender. It's almost like what you want in a pitcher in a big game. Keep the game low, and give yourself a chance to win. And Jimmy was able to do that, and he was solid. And I think as a team we were solid. One of the things when I saw the game for the first time on TV, or the tape of it, I couldn't believe how many great saves Jim made. Mm-hmm. But after the save, we cleared the rebound. They never saw a second shot. Our defense did a great job of letting Jimmy see the puck. There weren't many screens. He was able to see the shot, see the shooter, and he was able to make the save. But there was nothing after the save. It was cleared away, and I think that's what was a big part of the game was our defense being able to let Jimmy see the shot and clear the shot after the save.
How about the crowd? Because you hear different variations of it. It was the loudest it's ever been, but what was it? Was it the loudest it's ever been? Then part 2 of that, what was it like leading up to the point where you tied the game? Were the fans kind of just nervous? Just, oh, God, that Russians could just blow this thing open at any moment.
As a player, when you step on the ice, you don't hear the crowd at all. I mean, everything's blocked out. I could hear my teammate calling for a pass. I could hear Coach Brooks yelling to change the lines or whistling to change lines. And you never heard the crowd at all. But when you sat on the bench, you could hear the crowd, and it was crazy and wild. But when you jumped over the boards, you're almost like in a zone where all you did was hear what you needed to hear, which was a teammate or the referee or anybody else. So you never could understand the noise of the crowd until you were sitting on the bench.
All right, Mike, we're going to play your goal. We set it up. It's 3-3. There's 10 minutes left. Here is the audio from the television. Of course, this is Al Michaels here.
Snyder, buzz, long slap shot, saved by Mushkin. The U.S. team is depending a little bit too much now on Jim Craig. He's making too many good saves. Eruzione! Mike Eruzione!
What were you thinking when you shot it, Mike?
Well, I was hoping it went in. It's amazing. So many things go through your head in a short period of time. And I'm not a really smart guy. And I was surprised at how many things I was thinking of in that short period. But when the puck came to me, it was a defenseman in front of me, and my thought was if he stays, I'm going to use him as a screen. If he comes at me, I was going to pass the puck by him. As Dave Christian and John Harrington were kind of breaking to the net off to my left, and the defenseman stayed, and I shot it, and I basically saw exactly where I wanted to shoot it, but because I was going across my body, which was left to right, I pulled it just a hair. I mean, I saw the left-hand side wide open, and I pulled it a little and still found its way in there. So when it left my stick, I thought it was in, but wasn't quite sure. And then I heard the crowd kind of go crazy because the defenseman kind of screened me when I was going by him, and I just saw hands going up that Baker and Billy Baker, Harrington, and Christian raised their hands and made me realize that it went in. And I just thought it gave us the lead. You know, it's still it was still 10 minutes left to go in the game, which against the Soviets can be forever.
Right. Boy, isn't that amazing? 31 years later, you could still recall it like that?
Well, when I speak at these sales meetings, I have a little video that I show. And obviously I show my goals, so I remember it quite well.
That's true. Talk about that 10 minutes. Yeah, it's 4-3 USA. You got 10 minutes. Was that like the longest 10 minutes in your entire life?
Yeah, because I scored and then went back out on the ice, and the clock said 9:58, 9:57. It was a long 10 minutes, but yet we really played well. If anybody knows hockey and watches the last 10 minutes, we pretty much controlled the last 10 minutes of that game. It was pretty exciting for us because we knew that they were doing things they never did before. They were dumping the puck in the zone. The Soviets never dumped the puck in the zone. They used to skate it into the zone,
right,
bring it back, and then regroup and do things like that. So you could almost sense that they were kind of panicking a little, and we played pretty well, pretty solid in that last 10 minutes, even though the movie Miracle has Jimmy making 150 saves.
We'll get to Miracle in just a second. Mike Eruzione with us, former USA hockey team captain, of course, scored the winning goal for the United States in their historic win over Russia in the 1980 Lake Placid Winter Games. Can you believe all of this happened, Mike? I mean, just overwhelming when you get right down to it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I say yes and no. It's overwhelming because whoever thought in our lives would have a chance to be an Olympic athlete and play in the Olympic Games and represent your country, and then to have all this happen on top of it. And, and again, I've said this many times, to be an Olympian is a great honor and something that's very special, and just to be able to compete is amazing. And then to have, what happened to us in 1980 just as, icing on the cake. But it did happen, and it happened for a reason. It happened because a group of guys for 6 months busted their butts and worked hard and believed and had an opportunity and took that opportunity to another level. So, it's amazing in some respect, but yet it's warranted because I think we got what we deserved.
Mike, the last 10 seconds, what is going through your mind at that point as the time is ticking down?
Well, obviously don't let them score.
But just take us through that.
It was just, I was on the bench, and it was just, looking at the clock, looking at on the ice, looking at the clock, looking on the ice, and I'm just thinking, just keep moving, keep the clock going, and they really never threatened in those last few seconds, and then it was the buzzer sounded, and off we go.
So you're celebrating with your teammates on the ice. Did you realize at that point how big this was, or did it take a while to kick in?
Oh, we had no idea how big it was. And you know what? Even 30 years later, sometimes we shake our heads realizing how big it was. But I think at the time, all it was, we beat the I kept thinking we beat the Russians. And then after that, everything was crazy. The media, ABC grabbed Jimmy and I, and they interviews here and interviews there, and the rest of the guys in the team went back to the house where all our parents were staying, and they got to watch the game at 8 o'clock because the game was tape delayed.
Right.
And I didn't even get back to the house to see the game with the rest of my teammates because, ABC had grabbed, me and Jim to do all these interviews and stories and stuff like that. But interesting enough is that we had another game to play. And people forget that. When I travel around the country, people think we played one game.
Right.
The Russians. But if we lost or tied against Finland on Sunday, we could have come in fourth place and not even won a medal. So the Finland game now became the biggest game of our lives. So as great as the Soviet win was, this was the most important game. And I've told people all the time, if we lost to Finland and won a bronze medal or didn't win a medal, I'd have been sick. The Russian game wouldn't have really meant anything. And the analogy I like to use is like the Patriots. As great as that season was, they lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl. It didn't mean anything. Hey, you had a great year, but you didn't win the ultimate prize. We went to Lake Placid to win the biggest prize we could, which was a gold medal. And despite the fact that we beat the Russians, if we had lost to Finland, okay, so we beat the Russians, but we didn't win it. And I think that was our mindset going into the Finland game, was this is what it's all about.
How tough was it to get emotionally ready again to take the ice and have to take on Finland for ultimately having to win and win that gold?
Well, it would have been tough if we had to play the next day, but we had a day off. And I remember going to the rink Saturday morning for practice, and Herb put us through maybe the hardest practice we had all year. He skated our butts off, back and forth skating, drills, and I'm thinking, why is he doing this? And, I realized that later was he needed to bring us back down to earth because we had so much energy. We were all bottled up with all this excitement that he needed to break us down a little and let us realize that we had another game to play. Now, having said all that, it wasn't very hard for our team to get ready for Finland. Trust me on that. These guys were great players, great people, and we knew what was at hand. So Herb just kind of took it to another level in terms of the intensity of our practice the next day. But I think as a team, we knew that the Finland game was going to be the key.
Herb Brooks, how great of a head coach was he? I mean, because you obviously saw in the movie Miracle, you saw a lot of the all of his little traits and his ways. What was he like to play for?
He was great to play for. He was demanding, but that's how coaches coached in the 70s. It's not like today where if you yell at a kid, he calls mom or dad and says, "Yelled at me." I mean, this is the way Herb was. I tell people a lot. He was like your dad. You love your dad, but sometimes you hate your dad because he makes you do things you don't want to do, and that was Herb. Herb didn't care if we liked him, but it was important that we respected him. And I guarantee you there were times during the year that we didn't like him, but there never was a time where we never respected him. And I think we realized that he was doing the right thing for us. But he also had the right players, the right team to understand what he was doing. And he could push us and push us and push us, and we accepted the challenge and worked as hard as he wanted us to work.
Mike, you go from a guy who played hockey at BU, you play in the Olympics, you win the gold medal. Tell us about your life just immediately after that. I mean, were you overwhelmed with the fame you and your teammates received?
It was kind of interesting. I mean, here you are running around the country and meeting people who everybody knows you and you don't know them. But it wasn't that difficult for me. I'm not a big ego kind of guy. I mean, I enjoyed it, and I enjoy it to this day. It's fun for me to meet people and they come up and they talk about 1980 and even after the Olympic Games. It was a moment that was special to a lot of people, and I cherish that, and I enjoy that. I think part of what we did in 1980 is something that I love to share with people because it puts a smile on their face. And I think for me, and again, I'll talk about my teammates, we were part of something that was pretty amazing and pretty special, and I think we embrace it and enjoy the fact that people enjoy talking to us about it. It was a hockey game, but it was a hockey game that touched the lives of a lot of people, and it clearly has given me opportunities in my life that I never would have been given before. I'm no different today than I was in high school. I'm the same person. I'm very well grounded, and I think that's a lot of it because I have great parents that supported me throughout my life and gave me great values, and I think that's what's important to me. And it's fun. You know what? We could have lost, and if we lost, guess what? You wouldn't be talking to me. Please welcome Mike. He was in the Olympic Games. I get that, and I understand that, and I embrace, the opportunity that I was given. And it's like, go back to what we talked about earlier about what I'm doing today. You think a company like Kivana would want to bring Dan Jansen and Bonnie Blair on board and have us become partners and owners of a company? No, if we didn't win, so I get it. But what they're bringing us on board and the speaking engagements that I do and the travel that I do is all based on the fact that we were successful at what we did but we give a great message as well.
Mike, I'm sure you've been asked this question a lot, and that is, why didn't you try to play in the NHL? You were clearly good enough.
I could have played. There's no doubt in my mind. I would have been I'd have been a third or fourth line player. I probably would have played for 3 or 4 years. But at 25 years old, my dad always told me there's more to life than athletics. At some point in your life, the game ends. And I felt after 1980, winning a gold medal, that it couldn't get any better than that. And I was 25 years old. I wasn't 19 or 18 or 20 like some of my teammates. Then I would have played. And, it's not like today where somebody walked in and said, hey, Mike, here's a $10 million contract. Guess what? I think I'd have taken that.
Right.
But peace of mind is important in your life, and I felt as an athlete that was my greatest moment, and it was time to move on and do something else. And as we talked about earlier, I've been fortunate to do a lot of things over 30 years.
We got some questions on our Facebook page, on the show's Facebook page. I'll just read a couple because there were some good ones. John asks, please ask him for some anecdotes about how much of the movie Miracle was accurate and how much was a bit of Hollywood.
I would say the movie was about 90%, 85% accurate. Herb Brooks, Kurt Russell, as brilliant as Kurt was as Herb Brooks, and it's kind of amazing how good he was. In the movie, they softened him up a little. Herb was a little more intense than Kurt was in the movie.
Wow.
The role that they gave Kurt was a little friendlier side of Herb. Not a big deal, but a little deal. As a team, it's funny, we laugh about it. John Harrington played better in the movie than he did during the Olympics. Jack O'Callahan, we thought, played more in the movie than he did during the Olympics, although Jack was a huge part of our team, having not even been playing, but being on the bench and being in the locker room with us. And Jimmy made a lot of saves, but he didn't make that many saves.
Right.
Poor Kenny Morrow, great defenseman for us, went from the Olympics to the Islanders, 4 Stanley Cups, is hardly mentioned in the movie. And yet, a player like Kenny was part of the reason we were successful. So I wish, looking back on the movie, and I had nothing to do with the movie, I just kind of watched it like everybody else, I wish they had mentioned more of the guys in the team. I thought they spent a little too much time on me and Jim and Herb, and I think they should have spent more time on the Mark Johnsons and the Kenny Morrows and the Mark Pavliches, who were really a big part of our success.
But as for, most of the big scenes and most of what happened, those are the things that happen, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the fight with McClanahan and Herb in the locker room, that actually happened. And the bus scene where that didn't happen outside the bus where Herb was, when he threatened to cut me, that actually happened in his office. So there were a couple little tweaks here and there,
right.
But for the most part, it was, the goals were scored in the exact spots that they were supposed to be scored. And they did a great job of hiring hockey players to teach to act rather than actors to teach to play hockey. So the hockey scenes were dead on.
Right. Ross writes, Mike, did you and your teammates worry prior to playing the Soviets that you would potentially be subject to the same kind of abuse from the officials similar to that suffered by the 72 U.S. basketball team in the finals against the Soviets?
Well, I can tell them that thought never came into our mind, although the U.S. basketball game, they did get kind of screwed in that call, but no, we never. That was never a thought. Right.
You were worried about the Russians and preventing them from scoring double-digit goals.
Yeah. If anything, we thought the refs would be on our side, not against us.
Right. And that wasn't in America, that U.S. basketball from 72.
Right.
All right. But tell us, before we let you go, about where we can get your new product, and is there a website?
Yeah. You know what? If somebody wants to go to the website, it's actually goldmedalchampions.com. And if they want to join our team with Bonnie, Dan, and I, purchase these products, they're more than welcome to be a part of it. It's really kind of interesting because, there are 2 sets of products. One targeted for cardiovascular and digestive systems and a weight loss products, focusing on kind of your metabolic system. So there are thousands of people who have benefited from taking Kivana. And like I said, Bonnie, Dan, and I have pretty good reputation. I think we're pretty solid in our values, and we think this is something that's pretty good. We think it's an opportunity for people to live a better life, live a better lifestyle, and it's healthy and it's natural and it's all good stuff. So again, if they want to go on goldmedalchampions.com, they can join our team or purchase these products. I think they're pretty good, pretty special.
Mike Eruzione, former USA team captain. I got two more quick questions.
Go ahead.
My producer, Alan, wants to ask you a question. He's a hockey player, Mike, so just bear with him.
Hi, Mike.
Okay.
I would wonder if you would be interested in playing for the Pond Hockey Amsterdam Road Dogs, an outdoor hockey team in an outdoor hockey league outside of Amsterdam, New York.
Yeah, he wants to get ringers, Mike.
You got a better chance of hitting that Powerball lottery.
Finally, one more little statement from another Facebook poster. Dan says, I was conceived right after the Miracle on Ice because they won. So I just wanted to say thank you for me and for the greatest moment in sports history. And, Mike, I think that's a perfect way to end it, quite frankly. We thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, I'm fired up right now. I'm getting to talk to one of my heroes as a kid. So thank you, Mike. I really appreciate your time.
Well, hey, thank you very much, and to all my good friends up there in that region. It's a special place for me, and it's a special place for my teammates. So thanks for having me on board, and Happy New Year, and God bless all of you.
All right, you too, Mike.
Take care.